here in Maine. A couple of announcements. First of all, could you hear me and see the screen? If you could just verify that. I'm still learning how to use the software here. I'd like to make sure the audio is working well. The William Tyrell case was another announcement I had for you. I think it was a couple of years ago, but one of the analysts, Lucia Delaney, had analyzed the emergency call and concluded that the caller, the foster mother, was withholding information from investigators, and that would be a deliberate action. When we talk about withholding information, we mean that someone is literally thinking of what they don't want to say. So they're withholding that, knowing that it's needed. So we'll take a look at that. Regarding this case, here we're looking at an allegation of an attempted kidnapping at a Walmart. So there are three general possibilities that we're looking at. The first possibility is that the subject, in this case a writer who did this, posted it on social media, reliably reported that her child was a victim of attempted kidnapping. The second, of course, is that she didn't. She's deceptive for whatever reason about what happened at Walmart. But there's a third possibility that needs to be examined, and this becomes a little trickier. It's involved perception. Perception. We're not looking at reality, we're looking at her articulated or written perception of reality. And I went with a team yesterday on this, and they did a terrific job on it, a team of analysts, and we're not going to go into that type of depth here, but they did, and they went far into it. I shared with them an account from almost 2 decades ago where there was an allegation of assault against an adult male with developmental disabilities. Principally, the adult male was nonverbal. He couldn't speak, he couldn't communicate, and there was an allegation that he has been assaulted, that literally he was punched in the head. There were 2 staff present for this, a male and a female staff. So I had both of them write out statements of what happened. And their statements were very different, but both were truthful. In other words, being truthful doesn't mean it's accurate. It means the person is not attempting to deceive. So if I say to you, I drive a blue car, and you repeat to someone, Hyatt drives a blue car, it's not going to show up as deception. It's wrong. I don't drive a blue car. But you have no intent to deceive. Deception warrants intention. We can repeat lies and not know we're propagating lies, but it's perception. And this case was interesting. The female, she was young, I think early 20s, and the male, who had been working for years with this particular client, was, I think, late 30s. So it was a difference in age there. And what was so fascinating to me was she was alleging, that he had punched the client in the head, and she was very upset, and she ran out of the building upon witnessing that. And it was unusual because her statement showed reliability. His statement of what happened also showed reliability. And he had been working with the client for years. And what happens, and this is not just for adults with developmental disabilities, this is for dementia patients, this is for nursing homes, This is for those who have suffered probably the most in terms of the cruelty of dying alone, for example, over the last 2 years, where perception comes into play, and that we have to look at what they perceive to be have happened. And it's something that we use in witness statements routinely. He had been working with this client for years, and the clients developed very strong bonds. They like, as any human would, repetition, especially as they get older. It's like children. Children love repetition. They can listen to the same song or the same television program endlessly. And as an adult gets older and older, they often do the same thing. A fascinating part of life. And with this man working with the same client for all these years, he had built up a trust. So, what was the conclusion of the matter? Since neither of them were lying and they have two different accounts, the conclusion of the matter was that he would do what I guess we called from years ago a noogie, rubbing the top of someone's head. And the client found this very soothing. So when he became agitated, he'd come up and go, "Hey, it's okay," and that sort of thing. The young female that witnessed that was startled by it because she had a trauma history. And this particular agency that where this took place, I have a lot of respect for the ownership. They accepted the analysis, and it seemed accurate, and the client wanted that male staff to be with him at all times. But they also offered her, as a victim of domestic violence, counseling, which I thought was great, to be able to talk through some of that trauma. So this is the tricky part. Is this allegation true? Is it false? In other words, deceptive? Or is this the perception that the subject may have? Now, a mother of a young child is going to be on high alert. And so we're always concerned about that. And we don't classify all liars the same way. 90% or more of those who lie and practice deception do so by withholding information. Many lies come a panic lie. No, I didn't do that. Or they minimize. The category of someone that fabricates reality is very different. That person who fabricates reality is willing to inflict harm on others. They are the most dangerous types of liars in society. And I find there are more than a few of them in politics. And what we look at is someone fabricates reality. It's very difficult to predict the bottom, how low they will go, or how much damage they will do. And so if you have someone that fabricates reality, literally fabricating reality, that type of less than 10% of the population doing that, not a panic lie, not an embarrassed lie, not a negotiation lie or a bartering lie or a manipulative lie, but actually fabricating reality. The more power or influence that person has in society, the greater the danger. And if a subject is lying, and we get these in fake hates, we saw this in Jussie Smollett. Was he willing that two white males would suffer the consequences of prison over a racial attack and assault? And we see this in the fake hate, where someone falsely could be accused and even convicted. And is the fabricator of reality willing to see someone go to prison? We've seen this in false rape cases as well. So it is a very dangerous aspect of deception. It can destroy a family, it can destroy a community, a school, or it can do a greater damage, especially if that person has influence in society. But the bottom line is that they're willing to have someone suffer for whatever gain they can get out of it. It's difficult at times to discern because it'll come forth in sometimes reliable language. And it takes quite an effort to get there. But they are dangerous. And they can tear apart families, they can tear apart communities, they can lead to violence and death. So what we're looking at is a statement where someone could be accused, especially on camera, of trying to kidnap a young child. Let's take a look at that. Is the screen coming up clear there? Let me see if I can get a little larger for everyone. Okay, so I think that's better. So the allegation is that someone was shopping at Walmart and a man reached over and tried to grab her baby. We call that an event of significant hormonal consequence. In other words, there's going to be a reaction. You can describe this as the mother bear robbed of her whelps. A mother's going to just react in a way that indicates there is a hormonal response to fight. That hormonal response, as the hormones rise, it leaves an imprint. And that's where we get our understanding of PTSD, that someone has a very strong and sometimes unpleasant memory of a trauma that impacts them for life. But this would be, an attempted kidnapping would be an event of hormonal consequence. I hope to cover a recent statement by a politician who said that she was shot at. She said this yesterday. She was shot at. And that is an event of hormonal consequence. I want to look at her words in another video so that we might discern whether she's telling the truth or she's deceptive. And if she's making it up, she's telling us how dangerous she is for society. And I'll go into that another time. So we want to know, is she telling the truth? Now, how would we do that? How would we know if our subject is telling the truth? We want to know how much time has elapsed between the event and the statement. Because if many years have passed on, it means the subject, in this question, a young female, has repeated it many times. This helps remove the sting, the emotional sting out of it, and it can become story-like because it's been processed. Doesn't mean she's lying, but it's been processed so many times. She doesn't leave this one in doubt for us. She brings us right to the point. She said, I just had the worst experience ever in my life at Walmart in Brewer, and then a very large emoji of a crying face. So you recognize this would be from social media. So we ask ourselves, if it was just, which is an element of time, if I call 911 or 999, I call an emergency in, and I say, I just came upon a man bleeding in the street, the word just is telling them the element of time. It's very quick. It is a recent event, or a live event in that particular case. But it's telling us that this is not something that happened, as it's being posted, happened long ago. So someone would expect to be quite shaken up at that. So if you were a mother and someone tried to snatch your little girl, your little boy, where would you begin? We often look at where someone begins as what we call a priority statement, which is a top priority. And so someone might say, I was just at Walmart and someone tried to kidnap my child. Or a man, someone being gender neutral, a man tried to grab my child at Walmart. And if you wanted to, you look down here, parents, watch your children. If you wanted to warn others, you then go into a description of what he looked like. and you demand the police arrest him. He's dangerous. He tried to kidnap a baby, a child. This subject began with the pronoun I, which tells us that psychological presence, good, which means we're going to get reliable information from this. Even if she's deceptive, there's going to be good information here. This is why we never say, oh, so-and-so's lying because we see their lips moving, and haha, that's funny. That pushes away their words, which are invaluable to us to learn the truth. So the pronoun I, she begins with, which is really good. I know that she's going to be here, present. I'm not sure what she's going to present to me, but her presence, her psychological presence is strong. And she just had the worst experience in her life at Walmart in Brewer, and Brewer is the name of a town. So we don't have her angry through the communication of a emoji. We have her sad. So maybe he's caught. But this being the priority, I can't help but wonder if this is more about her than about what happened. This is more about her than what happened to her child. This is more about her than warning others, especially in the area, about this man and what he looks like and how you can spot him. And the police are going to get him. So I'm concerned, but one of the things we must do as we analyze is let the words guide us. I'm a bit prejudiced by the big emoji, and I've got to counter that. I've got to look to make excuses for that. I've got to bring myself into confliction. And here we go. So I know that this was the worst experience in her life. I'm not sure why. I was in the toy aisle with JC, and this older man, which is an interesting description of an older man, kept following us. So I switched aisles, her spelling, with her, JC, trying not to panic for JC. Now, it's not unacceptable that she hasn't introduced who JC is, because she's probably writing to locals. So that would be appropriate. They would know who JC is. I don't, but they would know who JC is. But did you notice that I was in the toy aisle with JC? So when we look at word with between people, we have I, and then we have JC, and we have the word with in between them. This is a sign of distance. Heather and I went to dinner the other night. I went to dinner with Heather. There are two different ways of saying it. The word with could indicate distance. That could be anything, including geographical. I went shopping at the mall with Heather. So I and Heather are very far apart in that statement, and between us is the word with. So you say, well, what was that like? Well, she wanted to look at this, I wanted to look at that, we went our separate ways. Oh, now I understand the use of the word with. Heather and I went shopping. We probably stayed together. We were probably looking at something that we both were interested in, that sort of thing. So it doesn't necessarily mean deception, but it does mean distance. So I find that in the toy aisle, she and JC are apart. And this older man followed us. Nope, kept following us. That could be trauma language, but it's not that strong commitment to the past tense that we like. So I switched aisles with her. We wouldn't have asked, hey, when this guy was following you, did you switch aisles? We wouldn't have thought of that, but she feels the need to explain that without being asked. Of course you switched aisles. Of course you moved away. Of course you grabbed a Walmart employee and said, help me. But she feels the need to say that. And then she tells us she was trying to not panic. What she was not doing is escalating here. Not panic, which is the inclusion of emotion right at the perfect part of the story. And I'll reword that, right at the perfect part of the account. So what we do with that is this event has just taken place. The statement is being written somewhere near the time of the event. It takes time to process emotions. We call this artificial editing. Artificial editing is an indication that someone has added emotions for effect in the perfect or logical part of the story or the account to persuade us that it's true. Now, if this was 10 years ago, that's fine. She's rehearsed it many times over and over or been in counseling, and then emotions will go in there. Not in this case. This is an allegation and it's a fresh statement. So we don't like to see that emotion placed in the logical part. And you think about it, when you go through a trauma, a guy pointed a gun at me, I ran away and I called 911. It was really scary. The emotion came at the end, not at a guy pointed a gun at me. I was terrified, so I called police. You wouldn't need to explain why you called police. And the terror would be naturally at that point, but you're responding on hormonal consequence, fight or flight. So we don't like to see an emotion placed in there, but you're always willing to give someone a pass, always willing to give someone a little bit of room, and they have to talk me into being deceptive because I believe people, and it's the way we work in this. So I'm not a big fan of starting how this impacted you, but young mom, under 30, horrible event, and it could happen. Not a big fan of the communication through the emoji of sadness. I would think it'd be anger as a mom, but we'll give her a pass on that. Then I have you and the child distant from each other, and you have a need to tell me that you were in the toy aisle. So I'm wondering, hey, are you trying to persuade that you're a good mom or you weren't neglectful? What happened here? And then I have the inclusion of the emotion, but I'm willing to discard all of that if the statement tells me otherwise. I was trying not to panic, and let me tell you why I tried not to panic. Let me explain to you why, because you might say, hey, why didn't you panic? I was trying not to panic for JC. So we have another explanation why. First, you need to tell us why she switched aisles. We wouldn't have asked that. We wouldn't have thought of that. And then we wouldn't have thought to ask, well, why did you not in the negative panic? Or, try to. Then he came up behind us and reached around me and tried, which means attempted and failed, to grab JC from right in front of me. So we have me and me again, and then we have a double exclamation mark telling us that she wishes to emphasize that. I grabbed JC and pushed her away, and let me tell you why I did that. I did it to leave. And she didn't tell us that she left, but she tells us why she did something again. So now if you look at the blue coloring here, blue, 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 generally speaking, that is hypersensitivity. And yelled Brandon's name. I don't know who Brandon is, perhaps a child who apparently is not with her either. So I looked at the word with again. I was with JC. I switched aisles with her. And I asked, is someone trying to persuade me that she was with JC rather than simply report it? Because it actually shows distance. And then she repeats it, with and with. So were you in a different aisle? Did you leave your little girl? I grabbed JC and pushed her away to leave and yelled for help. Nope, I yelled the other kiddo's name. I think if this is a kid. This man, now we've already been introduced to a man. He, an older man, so it should be the man. It's representing some form of closeness. This man came back. Came back where? Where were you that you're back there again? So she tells us she pushed her to leave, but she doesn't tell us she left. And tried to take her again. Now this one gets 3 exclamation points. At this moment, I started to get worried. So we have emotion again, and he is already, according to her account, already attempted to kidnap her. So now you're starting to get worried? It was okay before that? This is incongruent with the allegation. Then Brandon came down the aisle, and this man, not the man, but this man, just disappeared, 2 exclamation points. So guess what? You're not going to find him because he disappeared. Brandon can't identify him because Brandon wasn't there and the man disappeared. For that split second, if I wasn't paying attention, my baby girl would be gone, 3 exclamation points. And I recognize this, there can be a sense of immaturity with the emoji and the exclamation points, but this is an allegation of kidnapping, and this is by soon to be a biological mother. So some of you may have noticed what she wrote here. I wasn't paying attention. She allows this as a hypothetical, and this is what we call an embedded admission. This is not language that came from someone else or an accusation or the man or the people of Walmart or anything else. When you see the with repeated, there's a need to persuade that there was closeness when there wasn't. And here she embeds the words, I wasn't paying attention. My baby girl would be gone, 3 exclamation points. Then we have the capitalization where she warns others. Parents, watch your children at all times with their hand in yours or in the cart. So we're looking at someone who neglected their kids. And it can happen, especially at a Walmart, just for a moment, but she's telling us she was in a different aisle, in the very least. And perhaps someone said something to her, perhaps the baby was falling out of a cart and a man tried to help her, or perhaps a man even chided her. There's always conflicts at Walmart, they go together. So now she warns parents, which is great. So tell us what he looked like so we can be warned. You never know when something like this can happen to you. Brewer police showed up. Now they did show up. So someone called police and they have it on tape. And they have his face out there to find this sick man. So she finally gets to the point of warning others. And what do you have as a description for this man? What do you have? You have nothing. You don't know what he looks like. Highlight a comment here. This is good. She wants to seem like a hero. Okay, so that's accurate. We call that the good mother principle, also the good guy principle. It can be a good father, but we find it mostly in women who have a history of neglect. They have a need to present themselves in a favorable light. So then if you go back to her opening statement, it was the worst day for her. I think there was some kind of humiliation there or something took place. The police did have tape, and they assured the public there was no kidnapper to be concerned about. And that was the end of the account. So here we look at a subject who is not suffering from misperception. We have someone who's being deceptive. And this is frightening because what if she had been believed and some older man, whatever that means, nondescript, ends up arrested or in prison for it? Things like that happen. So yeah, here's another one. Everyone look for an older man. Keep your eyes out for an older man. We don't even know what that means. So another good comment, the halo effect. You know, who needs to present as the good guy? Someone who's not the good guy. someone who's under an accusation of not being a good guy. Martina, great question. Can you make sense of the pushing away? The analyst speculated, and I may put the notes out, but it's all speculation, like what happened there. Anything from the possibility of someone using kids to shoplift to blocking another shopper. If you've ever shopped at Walmart, you know those things go on. Could she have been even abusive towards her child, and then someone intervened and said, hey, stop that? Yeah, and that's the point. If you're writing this on Facebook, you want to give warnings. You want to tell people, this is what he looked like. This is what you've got to avoid. Be careful. So it is manipulative. It is deceptive. And remember, when someone puts something out publicly, there is an expectation that you're either going to believe them or you won't. And you have that right to believe or not. Yeah, this was recent, and there's no real news accounts on it. There was just a short release from the local PD saying, no kidnapper to worry about out there. The placement of emotions, I know that can be a little confusing at times, but as you think about things in your own life, especially if you're reporting a crime, you report the most important things to you first. The most important thing to her was that she was having the worst day of her life at Walmart. Culturally, people do a lot of strange things for likes or on Facebook or other social media. So really strange things. And I think this was one of them. She may have been caught in an embarrassing situation of some form and used this as an excuse to move away from the topic. Look for the emotions, follow the pronouns, look for distance between people, look for a commitment, look for the priority. Listen to what someone says, and you're able to learn from them what took place. Brandon, I don't know whether Brandon is a partner, Brandon's a son. I don't know who Brandon was. I don't fault her for not introducing him because probably she was writing to people that know her. Any other questions? I hope this has been helpful. And next up, I think will probably be the William Tyrell case and take a look at Lucia's analysis, as well as a politician who just recently reported yesterday, I think it was, that she was shot at. And I'd like to look at that and see if there's a commitment for there. So thanks, everyone.